Moderates Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill elected governors in Virginia and New Jersey, respectively, both growing the Democratic vote in areas that were far less blue in 2024. Now, Sherrill significantly outperformed the polls, turning what was expected to be a tight race into a 13-point romp. She joins us shortly. Democrats made gains in Virginia's House of Delegates, even flipping state legislative seats in Georgia and deep red Mississippi. And as we said, New Yorkers chose the 34-year-old Muslim-American Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani over former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa to be their next mayor, casting more than 2 million ballots, which is a turnout not seen since 1969.
When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them. A great New Yorker once said that while you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. If that must be true, let the prose we write still rhyme, and let us build a shining city for all. And we must chart a new path, as bold as the one we have already traveled.
That part about campaigning in poetry, governing in prose, was a nod to Andrew Cuomo's father, the late Governor Mario Cuomo, who famously said those words and embodied them. This evening, after admonishing Republican lawmakers behind closed doors earlier in the day, the president spoke to Fox News.
You said today, you kind of admitted that last night was not great for the party. You said that the shutdown and your name not being on the ballot were big factors. You're the head of the party, so obviously the policies are run on in these states. Do you see that at all, or how do you read it?
Well, I do, because, we've done so much. Energy is way down. Look at energy. We're going to have $2 gasoline. I did that. That brings everything else down. Groceries are way down, other than beef. The country's doing very well, but as Republicans, you have to talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, I saw that they kept talking about affordability. Well, Biden was a disaster with affordability. He had the highest inflation rate in the history of our country, but you have to talk about it. It's no good if we do a great job and you don't talk about it, and I don't think they talk about it enough.
Well, his was certainly not the only post-game analysis. Here's a small sampling of some of the other reaction from the left and right.
There was a common theme last night, and that is people all over this country are rejecting Trumpism.
And no one should read too much into last night's election results.
Last night was a shellacking for the Republicans and for Donald Trump.
A radical left earthquake just hit America. The epicenter, New York. Now the socialists are celebrating.
Republicans woke up this morning and realized that they are no longer in a 2024 electoral environment.
What happened last night was blue states and blue cities voted blue. We all saw that coming.
Governor-elect, congratulations on your win, which was bigger than a lot of people expected. How much of that do you think was because of specific policy positions? How much of it was a referendum on President Trump, who had actually made gains in New Jersey a year ago?
I think it was both the articulation of a bold leadership plan. So many people throughout the state, when I would talk to them about what was keeping them up at night, and I would address it, would say, we've heard that before. So that's why I declared a state of emergency on utility costs, to really galvanize the understanding that I was going to address things on day one, not wait for a 10-year plan or write a strongly worded letter, but actually address it. It also, I think, was because of getting to see everyone throughout the state, and then focusing on what Trump was doing that was harming the economy of New Jersey, because really what people are seeing across the state is prices are too high. I am really focused on addressing those costs, and people need to understand where they're coming from and how this works. And I think that was very effective.
Your former House colleague and roommate, Abigail Spanberger, won the governor's race in Virginia. A lot of people were talking last night how the two of you represent a renewed emphasis on centrist or moderate Democratic leadership. Do you see that?
I think the parallels here are Abigail and I both run tough races. We both came into the House of Representatives in that 2018 cycle in Republican districts. So it wasn't enough to simply turn out the base. We had to make our case and swing the vote. And that is what we work so hard to do in these election cycles. And I think that's why we're both so effective. So I think what you're seeing here is the traditional Democratic powerhouse vote coming out, working people. And I communicated to working people. I come from a background of labor. My grandfather, his job in a union lifted us out of poverty. I have 4 kids, so as a mom, people know I get what our kids have been through. I know what families are going through. So in all these ways, I think it was very effective to say, look, I'm going to take this on. And with my background in the military, I'm going to be very proactive and get to this right away. And I think that's what spoke to people.
There's been a lot of focus since last night on the contrast between you and Governor-elect Spanberger and New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist. I just want to play a clip from his victory speech last night.
If tonight teaches us anything, it is that convention has held us back. We have bowed at the altar of caution, and we have paid a mighty price. Too many working people cannot recognize themselves in our party. And too many among us have turned to the right for answers to why they've been left behind. We will leave mediocrity in our past. No longer will we have to open a history book for proof that Democrats can dare to be great.
First of all, I'm wondering if you agree with that. And also, there's certainly a lot of Republicans who are trying to paint him as the face of the Democratic Party moving forward. Do you see him in that light?
I think what he was articulating was this idea that working people haven't felt heard, that there is too much caution and mediocrity in the party. And I think that's what people in New Jersey responded to, was this idea that I was going to take on the status quo. And I think my history of effective leadership in Congress, being the most effective member from the New Jersey delegation in only my 2nd term, shows that I'm going to be very proactive here. That sounded very proactive, what he was articulating to working people. I think the proof will be in the pudding. It's about governing. We run these races not to run campaigns, but to govern, to deliver for people. And in the Democratic Party, we have a lot of ideas on how we can support and deliver for working people. What's striking to me is that in the Republican Party, there is one person calling the shots, and nobody is going to say anything different from that. And I think that's why my opponent did so poorly.
Governor-elect Sherrill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The president made serious inroads with Latinos nationally in last year's 2024 presidential election. Last night told a different story, however. Republicans lost significant ground among Latino voters in New Jersey and Virginia. CNN's exit poll shows New Jersey's Democratic governor-elect Mikey Sherrill did exceptionally well among Latino voters there, beating her Republican opponent by more than a 2-to-1 margin, 68% to 31%. Our poll shows similar results in Virginia, where Democratic Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger won 67% of the Latino voter compared to 33% for her Republican opponent. And take a look at these side-by-side maps. 5 New Jersey counties that the president won last year, Governor-elect Sherrill managed to turn them from pink to blue. It's important to note that Passaic County has a large Latino community, roughly 43% of the population. That's the largest share in the state.